Keep your mouth closed and be a good listener. It is never wiser to utter even a single word just for the sake of saying something without any use or useful purpose in mind. Unfortunately, we all want to speak and don't want to keep our mouths closed, and we have to pay for it pretty. These are two illustrations to prove it. Once upon a time in the kingdom of Magadha lived a skilled potter, Charudatta. As the name suggests, the man was the master of his time in the art of pottery making, able to produce the exact earthen replica of every object he intended to immortalize. That unparalleled skill made Charudatta conceited and he started misusing his God gifted powers. The potter once duped a poor Brahmin. He stole his cow by treasoning an earthen cow in place of the real one. The poor Brahmin, realizing his loss, cursed the potter to die on the seventh day. The potter, in order to trick the god of death Yama, made 7 replicas of his own self and stood among all statues looking identical with no scope of a strandful of difference. Finally, the moment arrived when Lord Yam descended on the workplace of the potter, finding himself perplexed and totally at a loss to understand whom from to snatch the lamp of life. All the 8 of them looked full of life, identically. Yam tried from all nook and corners, but to no avail. Tired and finally pronounced, Alas, I could judge who the real artist is and ask him to make a replica of my buffalo. The artist is such a great man that he should be allowed to live on this earth forever. But alas, pampered and feeling elated, the potter immediately opened his mouth. Lord, I am the artist, your humble servant. I will definitely make a replica of your buffalo. It is very kind of you to give me the honor. And Yam caught hold of the potter's celestial form, leaving the mortal remains beside the replicas. The fallacy of unduly opening his mouth cost the potter his life. There is another story of a man who was passing through a jungle path and accidentally happened to come across a head hanging from a tree with no torso. Seeing the man in panic, the head laughed loudly and said, Keep your mouth shut. The man rubbed his eyes and looked at the head in dismay. The head again declared, Keep your mouth shut. Now, the panicky man did not find any sense in standing amazed and ran away yelling, Ghost, ghost, till he dashed against the marching army of a king. In one breath, he narrated the incident before the king. The king with his army was led to the spot by the man where the head hung from the tree. That is the head which advised me to keep my mouth shut twice, said the man, pointing towards the head as the king and his army looked in disbelief. How can a lifeless head speak? The king said, looking angrily at the man. No, it did speak twice. It told me to keep my mouth shut, said the man, trembling with fear. Then why is it not saying anything now, you liar? Do you think that I am a fool? You have killed the man and hanged the head from the tree and now are misleading me and my army. How dare you waste my time? The king's anger grew manifold. Your Majesty, please wait for a while. It really spoke to me, said the man and fell on the king's feet. Cut the head of this damned liar, ordered the king, and at a single stroke of a sharp sword, off came the head of the man. No sooner did the man's head roll down the ground than the head hanging from the tree proclaimed, I had warned him against opening his mouth. The fool did not listen to my advice and met with the same fate as that of mine. So, we all human beings are falling into death traps, physical, mental, or spiritual death every day, every moment, just for the fault of opening our mouths unnecessarily. It is none other than our tongue, which can either make or mar our fortunes. So, why not to be discreet in making use of our tongues? The person who makes untimely, unrequired, and unnecessary use of his tongue is never respected. He may be able to draw the attention of his fellows temporarily, but is not at all valued by them. Such people are in fact worthless, having no values. Here is a story from the Buddhist scriptures where Lord Buddha is telling his disciples about the real worth of a man. Gautam Buddha once on his entrance to a fair Gautam Buddha, once on his entrance to a far off kingdom from Kashi, was passing through a burial ground with his favorite disciple Ananda. From amid the sprawling grasses, up came a grave digger with 3 skulls in his hands and charged at the enlightened one. O Buddha, people consider you as a great knowledgeable one, and probably you too think likewise. If it is so, then let me know the real worth of these 3 skulls. But please remember, don't try to befool me with your gift of gab, as you do with everybody. I have the records of these people. I know everything about their lives. Buddha sat on the ground with the 3 skulls put before him. He thrust a nail inside the ear hole of first skull and saw the nail coming out from all other holes meant for mouth, eyes, nose, everywhere. Then he did the same thing with the second skull and saw the nail coming out only through mouth hole, and finally the act was repeated with the third skull. To the surprise of everybody, the nail could not be passed out from any other hole than the ear holes. Now Buddha delivered his judgment. The first man had no values. He was a great gossiper and mischief monger. Whatever he heard could never digest and disclose that among all. The second man had a little value, as he disclosed the secret matters to his confidants and close associates only, not to anybody else. And the third man was a gem, a priceless jewel, whose value cannot be measured. This man did never open his mouth when he heard and saw anything. Yes, that is true, the Holy One. Right judgment, you are really the enlightened one. Saying this, the grave digger bowed his head before the Buddha and went away. Nobody likes a person who brags and beats his own trumpet. Sometimes we may be compelled to listen to somebody's irritating talks, but that is not the talk which can have any impact on our heart or mind. Definitely, these are sycophants who will extol the bragging boss for his baseless talks. But these are the people who hurl abuses and sarcastic comments against the same boss. Everybody on this earth thinks himself, herself to be better than others, and everybody should. So, when the question of listening to somebody else comes, our subdued ego comes onto the surface, making us jealous and inconsiderate. The crux of the discussion is speak only when necessary, otherwise, keep your mouth closed. Nothing can be greater virtue than the art of keeping mum. It saves energy, keeps you away from making enemies, and solves your impossible problems even. The greatest ever strategician, Chanakya, when asked about his success, remarked, Maun Nishchay Prayas, means keeping mum, determination and efforts. No doubt, it was because of his art of keeping secrets to himself that Chanakya was able to create vast and united empire across India and make Chandragupta its emperor. In modern context of Indian politics, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao and Mr. Manmohan Singh, the Congress Prime Ministers, not even belonging to Nehru Gandhi family, could survive on their post despite running minority governments because they knew the art of being mum. The rivals of dumb leaders feared their dumbness and kept away from troubling them. Be a good listener. Problem with 90% people of the world is that they want to blow their own trumpets. They are not interested in listening to others' points of view, totally going against the nature's gospel, which has bestowed us down with 2 ears to listen more and only one mouth to speak less. Unfortunately, almost everybody has a tinge of ego. Nobody would like to demean or belittle himself in front of others. Hardly 10% people are there who take real interest in what the others people speak. And believe me, these are the people who succeed in mastering the 90% of the people. These are the real leaders, the real motivators, because people want to be heard, they want to share their burden of troubles with others and thereby feel light or live under the impression that their worries are lessened or lightened. Just for being patiently listened to. How credulous, how fragile, how irrelevant the human nature is. Then why not to be a good listener and be a good leader? Why not to motivate people to talk about themselves and get the knowledge of human mind free of cost? Now, there is a story of an old American. My father-in-law, Professor B.N. Juyal, told me the following story of an old American who was deserted by his children at the age of 86 years. The man lived at his posh bungalow in Manhattan, where Professor Juyal had gone on a research work for a few months, and incidentally happened to live in the vicinity of the old man. It so happened one day that Professor Juyal heard a loud noise coming out of the old man's bungalow while passing through the house on a routine walk. Out of curiosity, he peeped inside the bungalow to find the old man quarreling with a young man, apparently an Asian. Now Professor Juyal could not resist himself from getting into the house. The story that came to light after his conversation with the two gentlemen was quite interesting. Actually, the young man was hired by the old one to visit him for 2 hours daily and listen to his stories of heroics. He was promised to be paid for the same as well. For a few days, the things went on well for both of them, but then suddenly this young man stopped coming. That day, when he came to get his dues back from the old man, he was confronted and asked for the reasons behind discontinuing his services. The young man demanded for a steep hike in the fee or to discontinue the services. That was the reason of the ensuing quarrel between the two. Professor Juyal, out of his sheer sympathetic attitude towards the old man, urged the young man to continue with his services and not to press for a hike in the fee. The man did not budge a little. When asked for the reason behind his obstinacy, he remarked, "This old man only talks about his youthful fantasies, love affairs, dates and ladies, beer parties, etc. It is so monotonous. I cannot digest it. In fact, nobody can." And from the next day, Professor Juyal volunteered to listen to the old man's youthful tales without any fee. That association did not last longer either, as Professor Juyal had to return to India after his research assignment. Now please remember, you have to pay attention, heart and soul, to each and every word of the speaker. There cannot be a better way to flatter anybody than to listen him patiently. Even your greatest critic will forget to criticize you if you listen to his outburst without reaction. Let the snake spill its venom uselessly in hissing and get tired and powerless. Once the venom is all spilt out, then that is the time you can catch it easily if you wish. The art of listening has become an endangered art now, on the brink of being extinct. Save it, take initiative and be called a leader. Remember, the first prerequisite to be a good orator is to be a good listener. All the great spokespersons and orators of the world have been great listeners first. There is an incident in the Mahabharata illustrating the ill effect or a fatal mistake, in fact, of not being a good listener. Everybody knows that during the middle phase of 18 days long battle of Mahabharata, Guru Drona became the commander in chief of the mighty Kauravas army. At a particular point of time, it seemed as if he would decisively win the battle against the Pandavas, and in fact, he was capable too. But his inarticulate faith in his disciples and innate habit of not listening to others proved fatal to him. On being misguided or misinformed by Bhima about the death of his loving son Ashwatthama, and subsequent explanation given by Yudhishthira drove him to instant renunciation of the world. The commander-in-chief of the Pandavas army, Dhriഷ്ടadhyumna, without wasting a minute, beheaded the all-time great warrior of the world. Imagine, just for the fault of not being a good listener. Alas, Drona would have listened to the statement of Yudhishthira with proper attention. The eldest of the Pandavas had remarked, Gurudev, yes, Ashwatthama has been killed, but not the man, elephant. Drona did only listen to the first phrase and did not pay attention to the latter part. Had he been a patient listener, the course of the battle would be different.